Hi everyone, Miss Meek here, and today we are going to talk about metric conversions. Now, metric conversions are really neat. You can actually use them you can do them by using a proportion, very similar to customary conversions. Just like before, you will be given a set of information of metric conversions, like how many kilometers are in a meter, or how many meters are in a kilometer, how many centimeters are in a meter, how many milliliters are in a liter, things like that. Okay, because kilometers, meters, centimeters, millimeters, liters, grams, those are all metric conversions. And so on a conversion chart, on a standard conversion chart, you'll be giving a lot of those measurements. And again, you don't have to memorize them. You can use them freely and you can set up those proportions. Now, you will set those proportions up just like how you do the customary ones, except for you'll just use the metric numbers instead. But what I want to talk to y'all about today is that the metric system is actually a base 10 system. What that means is that you can actually go from one measurement like kilometers to another measurement like meters just by either multiplying by 10 or dividing by 10 because it's a base 10 system. Now, what that means for us is that there's a couple little shortcuts that we can take that make the math a little bit easier. And so we're going to talk about a couple of those shortcuts today. All right, so the first shortcut is, well, you got to know what you're doing. All right, so here are our units, our basic units here for the metric system. So you have kilo, which means 1,000. You have hecto, which means 100. You have deca, which is 10. You have your basic units. Now, under your basic units, that is where gram and liter and meter live, okay? Then you have deci, which means a tenth. And you have centi, which is 100th, and you have milli, which is 1,000th. Okay, so each one of these prefixes attaches to our basic units right here and gives them value. So, for example, a gram is 1 gram. But if I attach the word kilo in front of gram, now that 1 gram just became instantly 1,000 grams because that prefix kilo means 1,000. Hecto means 100. Deca is 10. Deci is a tenth. Centi is 100th. And then milli is 1,000th. Now, here in 6th grade, we focus on very specific measurements here. And so in 6th grade, I want to make sure that you have some focus on our kilo, our centi, and our milli. Those are our 3 main prefixes that we use here in 6th grade. So kilo, centi, and milli. It's not that the other ones are not as important. It's just that here in 6th grade, we focus on those 3 big ones, okay? Kilo, centi, and milli. So for example, if you talk about a kilometer, okay, that prefix kilo attaches to that. We can also have a kilogram, okay? And technically you can have a kiloliter, though here in the United States, we really don't hear a whole lot about kiloliters. Under centi, the big one that everyone knows is centimeter. That's a measurement of length. You can also have a centigram and a centiliter. Again, not as popular here in the United States. And then milli, of course, we have our milligrams, okay? We have our milliliters. And we have our millimeters, okay? Lots of L's and I's and M's and all sorts of things there, okay? So again, we have all these different measurements that we are going to be using here. Now, we need to remember the order because the order is really important. As I move away this way from basic units, what's happening is that the size of what we're talking about is getting bigger. So the size gets bigger. Typically, what that means, though, for my number is that my number starts to get smaller. 1,000 grams is only 1 kilogram. So if I start moving to the right, my number gets smaller because the size of what we're talking about gets bigger. Okay? And when I move to the left of my basic units, the size of what I'm talking about is starting to get very, very small. Okay? The size gets smaller of what we're talking about. For example, a meter is a lot bigger than a centimeter, and a centimeter is much bigger than a millimeter. So the further I go to the right there, the smaller the measurement that I am talking about. Now, it's really important to remember the order of these measurements, because this being a base 10 system, I can move between measurements by either multiplying by 10 or dividing by 10. If I am moving towards the left, as I'm moving towards the left, that means that I'm taking my amount and I am going to be dividing by 10. As I move to the right, I'm going to be taking that amount and multiplying by 10. Okay? And so that's really important to know that this is a base 10 system, and so moving from measurement to measurement, all I have to do is either divide by 10 or multiply by 10. Now what's really cool about that is there's actually a shortcut to that. Moving decimal places is the same as dividing by 10 and multiplying by 10. So we don't actually have to do all the multiplying and dividing. If we know what we're doing, we can just move a decimal place around, and that represents the same thing as multiplying by 10 or dividing by 10. So why is the order important? Because when you're moving your decimal point around, you need to remember the order of all of these measurements. So one way to remember that is King Henry doesn't usually drink chocolate. Uh-oh, I'm running out of room here. Chocolate, and then it's milk. There we go. So if you ever forget the order of our measurement system here for the metric system, it is KHDUDCM. King Henry doesn't usually drink chocolate milk. And that's going to be really important for us to do our problems, because we're going to use that to move our decimal place around. Okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of examples here. So for number 1, I am going to write my order. KDUDCM. Now remember, under that U is where grams and liters and meters live, our basic units that don't have a prefix attached to them. All right, so I have, what am I starting with? I am starting with centimeters, so that is where the C is. I'm going to put a dot above my C. That is my starting point, because C is for centimeters, or centi, that prefix, okay? I am trying to get to meters. Meters is down here under the U. So this is where I'm trying to get to. This right here is my meters. Okay? It is not this M. Not this M. That M is milli. That is not the same as meters. Okay? And so all I'm going to do is I am going to travel that distance. 1, 2 spaces. Now, pay attention which way you traveled. It was 2 spaces to the left. So, on my number, that 5, my decimal currently is living right here. Okay? Decimals on whole numbers always live to the right of the whole number. I am going to take that decimal and move it 1, 2 times to the left, just like I did in my King Henry example over here. Moved it to the left 2 spaces. I'm moving it to the left 2 spaces on my number. When I do that, I'm going to fill in this hole with a 0, that space with a 0, and I get my final answer. My final answer is 5 hundredths. That is the same as taking that 5 and dividing it by 100. Moving to the left is the same as dividing by 10. So I divided by 10 right here once, and then divided by 10 again on that second jump. So divide by 10, divide by 10. So again, this is like dividing by 10 and then dividing by 10 again. Okay, let's take a look at this next example. I'm going from liters to milliliters. So again, write your letters out. King Henry doesn't usually drink chocolate milk. Under my U is where grams, liters, and meters live. Where I'm starting, I am starting at liters. That is right here under basic units. I put a dot above where I am starting. I am trying to get to milliliters. Milliliters is going to be under this M right here. Remember, this guy right here is milli, and so this is milliliters, okay? Milliliters. So I am going to move, let's see, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and that was to the right. So on my number that I have been given, here it is, I'm going to take that decimal that is already there, and I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3 times to the right, and my final answer is going to be 1,345. Again, think about what that number means. I'm going from a liter, which is like a medium size type thing. Think about like a 2-liter soda that you buy at the store. So a liter. To milliliters. Milliliters are about the size of like a drop that comes out of an eyedropper. So we're going from something pretty big to something very, very small. So that is why our number got bigger. It went from 1,345 thousandths all the way to 1,345, because that's how many tiny little drops are inside of that liter. Okay? So again, what I just did, moving to the right. Moving to the right is the same as multiplying by 10. So every time I've jumped to the right, it was like multiplying by 10. So multiplied by 10, multiplied by 10, multiplied by 10 again. It was like multiplying by 10 times 10 times 10, or 1,000, okay? So when I move to the right, it's like multiplying by 10. That's why my number got so much bigger. And then moving to the left, like on number 1, makes my number get smaller because it's like dividing by 10. All right, guys, I know that this is kind of a confusing process, but hopefully if you rewatch this video a couple of times, you'll start to see the pattern of how I can move to the left, and it's like dividing by 10 each time I move, and then when I move to the right, it's like multiplying by 10 each time that I do that. All right, guys, I hope this helped and cleared up any confusion. I will talk to you later. Bye!